And I don't know if John's going to introduce them or have them introduce themselves, but first I'm going to introduce John Chambers. You just saw him on screen. John is Stanford Data Science Senior Science Advisor. He's been with the program from the beginning, actually. I interviewed with him in the early days, and I was the first hire. So he was really here in the beginning and helped shape the program, but he has a strong passion for the interdisciplinary early career research. John was a member of Bell Labs for 40 years and retired from there and decided to spend some time here at Stanford as an adjunct in the stats department and helping build Stanford data science. John's done a lot of things, and I'm not going to read his full bio, but I do want to just mention that John was instrumental in the creation of the S language and its successor, the R language. Some of you may have heard of it. He's been, a consultant and a teacher throughout his life, and has written many books and may be continuing to write books. So stay tuned, and we're very grateful to have John as part of the Stanford data science team and to have him leading this panel of alumni. So John, please take it away.
So thank you. You just stole about the first 3 paragraphs of what I was going to say. But then the movie stole another 3 paragraphs of it. So I have no excuse if I blather on. Yes, just to say a little bit of what Chris already said, this is something that is a passion for me, and I'm so excited to see this wonderful large group of people here and to see the enthusiasm and the interest. So this morning was kind of a mix of things. We learned about Marlowe and we learned about other centers and stuff like that. This afternoon, the whole thing this afternoon is all about people. And of course, to say the obvious, people are the most important part of it at all. And you're in this session right now and in the following one, you're going to meet some of the current and former members of the data science scholars and fellows. Those are graduate students and postdocs who we support, a small, necessarily small and very select group of people. And you'll hear a little bit more about what they're doing, but I'll just say a little bit now. The goal of this, in my opinion, the background goal to the whole thing is to build science for the future, to build the data-intensive science that we all, I hope, believe in, and that I certainly think is going to be crucial for the future of the planet. Stanford Data Science has, since it's been founded, and I've been around since it's been founded, is trying very hard to do that in a number of different ways, and you've heard about a number of them already. But in particular, we're trying to highlight a very diverse group of people at the PhD student level and at the postdoc level, from as diverse an array of backgrounds as possible, but all with a commitment and skills in data-intensive science. And so you're going to hear from 6 of the current scholars and fellows in the session following this one. And now we have, for the first time, I will say, been able to invite back some of our alumni. And I think that's going to be, I'm just excited so much to hear from everybody here. So I thought to begin with, perhaps we'll just sort of go left to right and say who you are and where you are currently, and as much as you'd like to reveal about how you got from here to there. Krishna, start.
Hi, I am Krishna. I graduated 3 years ago, and I currently work in San Francisco in a company called Watershed. I'm a scientist there where I'm developing AI systems to measure the emissions of physical goods. So this can be a chair, a T-shirt, or whatever. And the emissions embedded in their supply chain to help companies buy more good goods and less bad goods. How did I get there? Gosh.
You don't have to reveal too much.
Well, it all started with a hike with John. No. um, yeah, but I think I was in Earth System Science here in Stanford, the precursor of what now is it was part of a school that is now called Sustainability School of Sustainability, and I got to be part of this amazing cohort of people at Stanford Data Science, all the way from I think it had representations from all the schools back then, hopefully even now. And that was almost like curiosity inducing because on one hand, there are data scientists from all different parts of the university, and we get to see how diverse the applications are. But at the same time, on the other hand, there's also unity of all the tools that people use. Everybody uses cross-validation. Everybody uses, I don't know, Seaborn for data visualization. And that was a big learning moment for me, where we were discussing and understanding all the different tools that people use here and there, and slowly contributed to my journey of being an AI scientist here at Watershed.
Cool, thanks. Hi, I'm Daniel. I was part of the very first cohort of data science scholars back in, I think, 2017. It looked very different. Back then, it was just a few of us in a room with a bagged lunch. And I can talk more about that later. But anyway, now what I'm doing, I own a company. I founded a startup. What we do is we collect data. Essentially, we've figured out some really great techniques for mapping out humans' experience of their smartphone screens and how to essentially map out longitudinally for weeks, months, or years exactly like a brain's interaction with a smartphone is how I see it. So there's a lot of applications in building out market research panels, boosting what normally would require individual surveys. Paid survey programs can be augmented by the kind of stuff we do. And I've had the pleasure of continuing work in academia we're still publishing papers, and there's a lot of different universities and different individual faculty that are making use of our technology and our data through licensing and through services we provide. So at the moment, we provide data services to the Kellogg School of Business at Northwestern University. We have provided data collection services for faculty research at UT Austin School of Advertising. And in about a week and a half, we're going to announce our biggest partnership yet, which is with a new center at Princeton University that's going to make totally freely available in open source format some of our most incredible data collection techniques purely for academic use. Pretty excited about that. And so a lot of that is thanks to me acknowledging and recognizing the data collection and data analysis approaches in my PhD, independent of the domain-specific applications I had in my regular department life. Just seeing that there was just a very broad utility to the exact hammer I was using, and just thinking, well, I could just take this hammer out into the wild, and so that's what I did. That's me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Johannes. I graduated last year, so a lot later than Daniel. But I am now at OpenAI on the data science team. I'm working on what we call model behavior, so sort of measuring how the models behave, how well they solve problems, what they do that users like or don't like, and then try to fix it. And I'm sure we'll talk more about how the scholars program helped me prepare for that job. But in short, I think just the time in the PhD and the time in the data science scholars program helped me just work a lot better with researchers, at work. It helps me understand what they're doing, even if they're not from the same field that I was in. So I'm really grateful for that time.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa Sinopoli. I also graduated last year with Johannes, and we were scholars together in Stanford Data Science. last year, I started as an assistant professor at Harvey Mudd College in their Department of Engineering, where I teach courses to like freshmen doing intro to design and manufacturing, and also courses to juniors and seniors in areas like biomedical engineering. If you don't know Harvey Mudd, it's like a 900-person school, so super tiny, but I think like carries over a lot of these ideas that I really care about when it comes to like developing communities and forming close, tight-knit connections with the people in those communities. And Stanford Data Science is a great place to do that. The lab I was in here at Stanford was a great place to do that, and Harvey Mudd allows me to continue that with undergraduates and researchers as well. So the research I do at Harvey Mudd has to do with human biomechanics and anatomy and how that influences biomechanics. So I work with some undergrads there. It's a continuation of the work that I did with Stanford Data Science and the lab that I did my PhD in here at Stanford, and is just a very cool, I think, touching back to what you were talking about, Johannes, cool way to work in an interdisciplinary space that's informed by things like engineering and medicine, but also by data science and a lot of the conversations that we have had within the data science community.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Emmanuel Balogun. I'm presently a machine learning optimization engineer at Google X. Specifically, I work within the group called Tapestry. So Tapestry's work is solely focused on building machine learning and optimization tools for electricity grid operations, planning for mapping the grid and making it more visible for everyone. So essentially what I do specifically is that I architected one of our optimization engines that helps grid operators to make decisions on what to do. For example, you can imagine that if you're in a building here today that has electricity, there is a control room where things are going crazy, where people are trying to figure out how to match demand and supply at every second. And so we're building AI tools to make that much more accurate. And then the second piece of my work is more on research, trying to figure out ways to use machine learning to solve hard physics problems. And it's of business interest as well to some of the things we're doing within Tapestry. How did I end up here? So during my PhD, I was part-time working with the team at Tapestry at Google X. And so the transition from that into full-time was kind of straightforward because I kind of continued working on similar products. I think one thing that Stanford Data Science did for me specifically was that I worked for 3 PIs when I was at Stanford. So I was in 3 labs, and my research was extremely interdisciplinary. So I touched everything from like climate to energy. And in between, I was using computational methods to kind of develop things within that space. And I feel like Stanford Data Science was that community that I could talk about everything like machine learning stats with people, and they spoke the same language. So I felt like that was a very good environment for me to continue growing and feel that, I guess, spark for computational sciences in general. Yeah.
Thanks. I'm Annie Lamar. I also graduated last year. I'm currently an assistant professor of computational classics at the University of California, Santa Barbara. I also have courtesy appointments in linguistics, computer science, and spatial data science. So nobody knows what I do. I also run the low resource language lab, where I have, at any given time, 5 to 6 PhD students and about 10 undergraduate RAs. My research focuses on 2 main things. Because I'm a methods scientist, I run a methods lab that's broadly interested in low resource methodologies and languages, which can mean low computational expense and can also mean small data. One half of my research is on studying how stable and variable different mathematical structures are across a variety of languages, in particular looking at the stability of vector spaces. The other half of my research is much more directly applicable to the real world. I work on data science for social justice and social good, particularly on making migration safer and more survivable globally, along with the UN Migration Network. Other things that I do that I'm happy to talk to other people about is I'm really involved with the first-gen community, both first-gen faculty and first-gen students at UCSB. And I write op-eds and think that being a public voice in academia is really important for helping people realize the value of our work.
Okay, great. I think they just illustrated the diversity and the exciting things everybody's doing. And many of you already touched on this, but I would like just to go around again and ask you to pick up a couple of things that you particularly remember from your time here. Not necessarily good things. You could definitely tell us about things that we could have done better, and maybe, who knows, maybe we're going to. But just sort of the highlights of what kind of struck you and what's been your main experience. Maybe we'll go the opposite direction this time, or. Sorry, Anne.
Oh, no, it's okay. I hope you'll forgive me 5 seconds of thinking. I think there's a lot of opportunities, especially now in academia, to have interdisciplinary spaces, and it's a word that we hear a lot. But what's really unique to the Stanford Data Science program was to have a really deep and meaningful interdisciplinary experience rather than a one-off interaction with someone from a different department. I remember a conversation I had with someone at the beginning of my second year as a data science scholar. And this was someone I thought I would have nothing in common with. They worked on giant data sets, so data sets where the challenges are, I can't afford enough GPUs to run this data, and my problem is, like, I have 5 lines of data. So, really working from opposite ends of the resource extremes. And I don't think this was a person I would have ever run into at a conference or even an interdisciplinary event. But because of the affordances of the data science program, in that we spent a lot of time together in a space working and talking, we eventually came to realize that a lot of the challenges that we had in the data that we used were similar. And in particular, thinking about data quality, which is really essential when you're working with small data sets. And when you're working with giant data sets, data quality can be a way to filter your data set into something that is as useful as possible. And in having that conversation, we were able to come up with this idea that maybe there's a theoretical framework for data quality across discipline, across data type. I'm looking maybe at Sanskrit, and it's full of holes, and he's looking at way too much data scraped from the web, but there really is, at its heart, this methodological core, and I think that's really the important part of Stanford data science, is that it brings people together based on method rather than discipline, and offers a lot of really unique opportunities for people to understand their work, to think about their work in new ways. And it's certainly the reason that I consider myself a method scientist who runs a computational lab inside a very ancient humanities discipline. I don't think that is a position I would have arrived at either academically or just in terms of my career had it not been for the data science program.
I have to ask, the term computational classics for what you are is one which, frankly, I've never seen before. Is there a story there?
I am, yeah, it was digital classics, and I made them change it before I would take the job.
Good for you.
They wouldn't accept data-intensive classics. I did try for you, John, though. I did try. What that means, by the way, is I use computational methods to study ancient Mediterranean languages, mostly archaic Greek, Sanskrit, and Latin.
Wow, that's super cool. I think my highlight, it was 2 things, and it had to do with people. The first one was, I don't know if Emily is still here. She was a fellow, I believe, postdoc. I don't know if she's still here. But anyway, I was working on this paper, and I built a method for essentially simulating climate. And I knew that to publish that paper, I had to get climate scientists on my side, essentially. And so first day I joined Stanford Data Science. I think it was the first meeting we had, and we're doing intros. And we started talking, and she told me about her work. And then from there, for the whole period I was actually there, she was kind of mentoring me in climate science. And we're having a lot of conversations every couple weeks, and really helping me review my paper as well. And I think she was extremely instrumental in my publishing that paper, and also wording it in a way that it met the confluence of the different fields, machine learning scientists and climate scientists, because that's actually quite hard to do. So that's one. And then second one was, I think I just made great friendships, with some of the other scholars, Justin, I don't know if he's here, but he likes to weightlift, and it was pretty cool just to have someone else like talk about weightlifting. And I'm walking in maybe like sore from a session, and he knows like, okay, this guy was weightlifting the other day. So I think those were my two like main highlights, to be honest.
I think I have some things to repeat, so I'll keep those parts brief. But I think like the big interdisciplinary focus of Stanford data science is really, really valuable. I forgot to mention this, but I didn't mean to go into academia. I came to Stanford like thinking I was going to go into industry. In my last year here at Stanford, I thought I was going to go into industry. But I always had in the back of my mind, like maybe at some point it would be interesting to go teach at a teaching institution. And so I've really been intentional over the past few years to keep myself very T-like, right? So very deep in my own like biomechanics area, but also very intentional in growing out another arm for data science and keeping myself super breadth heavy across many disciplines. And Stanford Data Science for sure allowed me to do that, as Annie was talking about. I feel like my mind would be blown like every week when we would come into our Stanford data science sessions, because someone would be teaching me either something new about a method, something new about their field, or something new in both most often. And it was just really cool to get to continuously learn outside of my very focused lab group area in this context. Harvey Mudd focuses also on like very interdisciplinary learning, and so I think it helped me market myself to them when I did decide to apply for this role, in showing that like I can speak across boundaries and speak with someone like Emmanuel who does something technically in the same field as me. We were both mechanical engineers, but so wildly different. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of that. So I was planning to say a lot about interdisciplinary research and how the value of sort of seeing how others apply methods that might be similar to yours, but call it something else or do it slightly differently. I think that helped my research a lot. Just being able to like borrow ideas from other fields that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. But to say something slightly more new, we had this weekly, I don't know if it's still a thing, like data science reports. And it was a sort of weekly thing we did where one of the data science scholars or fellows would present their research to the rest of the cohort or the group. And it was a really good forcing function to like explain what you're doing to people outside of your field. And also a way for me to understand what other people were doing, because I think going to a conference and asking people what they're doing, they will explain it in a way suitable for other people in their field. And I usually wouldn't understand like 90% of it. But when we had the data science reports, it wasn't that scary to ask them questions because we were actually from different fields. But also it helped you understand sort of how to translate your own research into language that others understand. And I think that's been super valuable after graduating.
Thanks. Unfortunately, that was my new take on interdisciplinarity. So I was in the communication department, and that's already like an inherently interdisciplinary field, at least in social science. And so I'd already had mentally my like self-registered as a computational social scientist. I'm interdisciplinary, and then I showed up, and there's like folks on the Monterey campus that were talking about oceanography and blowing my mind. Maybe the new take is that it was actually really helpful to see the contrast just as much as it is to see the similarity. Just because it was more than just different applications in different domains. There was entirely different fields of data science that I had not yet been privy to, and I didn't even know that I was not privy to things to the extent that I was, at least. I had like the notion, but to be confronted was healthy, I would say. Besides that, the community aspect was really, really valuable. So there was a time when it really was just a few of us, and it was really up to us scholars at a certain point to ensure that we just kept autonomously keeping up the conversations, just showing up when there was nobody supervising us for a period. And the community, I think, aspect was extremely healthy and valuable, and it made it feel like there was some I would say kind of impact you can make as a student, especially in what eventually became all this. I don't know what tiny impact any of us had, but like butterfly effect wise, there is something there. There is some kind of like bouncing pinballs effect where it matters, and it really felt that way even then. And for anybody who's been in Wallenberg, if you ever seen like the couch, the red couch, the coffee table, that was all my aesthetic choice. I was there. The tapestries, that was my idea. Anyway, probably my biggest impact at Stanford is the couch. Anyway, those are some of my takeaways.
It's very difficult to go last now. I'll go with 2 highlights and 1 low light. Haven't seen a lot of low lights yet. Okay, highlight 1. Gosh, the people. For me, Stanford data science was like a group of stellar people, the world's top scientists in their own domains, and me, who are like so humble that it has led to long-standing friendships now. And it was great to be part of that environment and make those connections and friendships. Multiple people have written textbooks, are like the world's leading experts in those domains. So I'm truly honored to know them as friends. Second highlight, someone touched on this, being T-shaped and data-intensive science. Before I came to be part of Stanford data science, I was always, like my mental model of science was that you could either be an expert in the domain, like in my case, I can explain in terms of climate science, you can be an expert in radiative transfer or the atmospheric circulation, or you could be an expert in the data-related aspects, like be proficient at computational sciences. But the first few weeks of Stanford data science, I remember an exercise particularly that I think Naras, John, and Chris led, where we were defining what data science means, and data-intensive science came to be a part of that, where it was almost like a realization moment for me, where you don't have to choose. I don't have to choose between being an expert in the physical simulations of Earth and being good at processing data related to Earth. I can use both intertwined to be an expert in data-intensive science. So that was a big highlight for me, where I came out with that realization. And since then, I've not been choosing between the 2. Low light. I don't remember our swag to be as good as this now. All of you have such beautiful jackets now. So that is definitely a low light. Thank you.
We got socks.
John, can I add one more thing?
Absolutely. Anybody wants to pitch in now? That's all I had prepared.
Okay, we haven't talked about data and donuts at all up here, and I want to make sure that it.
You have to explain what that is.
Yes. So, in our weekly gathering, we have some sort of scholar report where a scholar or 2 will go up there and tell us about their work. But then we also typically have an hour led by maybe 2 scholars where they just choose a topic in data science. Sometimes it's technical, but more often than not, it was not technical. And we explored a whole bunch of topics from academic integrity to there was a phase where we just only talked about LLMs for a long time. We've talked about things like data privacy. What other things are people remembering?
Visualization.
Yeah, visualizations. Anything that you could imagine touching on data science, you could host a topic about. And that was really helpful for me because while all of these ideas had been things that maybe I had thought about a little bit on my own before, they wouldn't naturally often be topics that would come up in my typical lab meetings. And this was a whole other lab meeting that I could have with people who also thought about these types of things. And now we had dedicated time to talk about those issues. And I found it super helpful when I then go out to talk to people outside of academia in my life, or now when I talk to students about things, I have more perspectives that I can bring to discussions, and I found that really, really valuable, and as valuable as some of the more technical and interdisciplinary things that I learned technically with data science.
I have to say I agree with that, because I think I was talking to someone the other day about a color map, and they told me you shouldn't use that color map. I think it was Jet or something. It was horrible, and I switched the color map, I remember it was for like a presentation and it was much, much better. So like just little things like that and moments really, really make a huge impact.
So now that one more thing I want to add to what Marissa said. One of the things that I think is very critical for the way we've been running things for the scholars and fellows is that we have this room. We now have a nice room here. We used to have this also fairly nice room that we borrowed. And as I have emphasized several times when we do them, it's a private space. It's a safe space. And I think it's very important for people in any situation, but especially, I think, for young people trying to get into science these days, to have a group of people with whom they have some rapport and who they feel safe talking to. So that's something. So now, having said that, of course, not that aspersions at all, but this is not quite as safe a space as we have for ours. Nevertheless, I want to ask some questions which may touch a little bit on things, and so don't say anything more than you want to say, even though we trust you all. So one of the things that is obvious when we look at this highly diverse set of places where you are now is the choice of careers you've made and the choice of careers you've been able to make between the obvious poles or academia and starting your own company. I just wonder if you could reflect a little on how that felt to you and just sort of any sense of what you have that you would like maybe things to be different or that, anything at all. Okay, in any order now. Who wants to start?
Oh, I'm glad someone knows how to use the microphone. I'll echo what Marissa said. I really didn't expect to end up in academia. I went to grad school thinking I would take a job in the computer science industry, and it was actually this program that convinced me maybe I should try to apply for an academic job. I really liked working with the Data Science for Social Good program, which is another program run by Stanford Data Science, and I really found that I was able to connect with people across disciplines here, and thought maybe if I got an academic job, that I could continue this kind of work. As much as I love the ancient Mediterranean, I'm also broadly interested in a lot of other things. And when I decided I would go on the academic job market, I applied mostly for faculty jobs in computer science. And in fact, every other job I was offered was in computer science. But I ultimately decided for the money to choose the humanities.
Yes. Yeah. Would you like to elaborate?
Elaborate on how little money there is in the humanities. No, but I think that the position I'm in now gives me a chance to explore all the different variety of questions that I'm interested in. And I think I got that motivation or the idea that was possible from the Data Science Scholars program. So I think it was certainly a twisty way that I ended up here. Also working through a lot of first-gen imposter syndrome to get here. But I think that the program itself is really helpful in clarifying what's important to you and figuring out how you're going to enact those principles in what you choose to do.
We'll just get the academic people out of the way first. What was I going to say? Okay, so I got some healthy pressure to apply to this academic role because I told you that I thought I was going to industry even as I was applying to this role. But I think this is a continuation of this through line here where I think a lot of people around me knew more than I did when I was doing my PhD that community is one of the most important things to me in life. And so in addition to the freedom that my academic role gives me now, it really allows me to foster community and expand community and support students, which is something that I find super rewarding. And I do know that there are many opportunities to mentor in industry, but the pull to actively help students on a daily basis and be able to see the impact that I made there is ultimately what led me to my decision to at least try this before industry coming out of Stanford.
Yeah, I can go. Yeah, I think mine was GPUs. So I can't tell you how much time I spent optimizing like my code to train like models. And when I found that, in the industry they are just like a plethora of GPUs you could access to build and explore anything you wanted to explore, that was exciting to me. But in all like realness though, I always thought of my career as eventually coming back to academia, so I don't see myself, being in industry forever. I do enjoy teaching, and I think I always got excited whenever I got to present my work to the group. And so I eventually plan to come back at some point if they'll accept me. But really, I wanted to give myself the best chance to be not too limited, I guess, in resources, because honestly, academia is quite hard in terms of the resources you get compared to some other tech companies. And the good thing for me was I found alignment. So if you see Tapestry, if you read about Tapestry, it's actually quite perfectly aligned with my PhD thesis. And so I still get to do something that's really, really impactful. And so it's essentially building like AI tools for electricity transition, energy transition. And I think that was really important that I was able to find that alignment while also having fun with GPUs. So that's cool.
Reaching for lowlights. Something kind of tricky about any program like the Scholars Program is that it's inherently exclusive, Like, there's only so many seats, and I actually kind of felt a little bit tricky about that during my time in the program. Maybe it's, imposter syndrome that plenty of folks have, but it just felt like I had plenty of peers who applied, who really wanted to be part of this, and it's like, so many people are so incredibly qualified, especially, here, it's like, who isn't a scholar and who isn't doing data science at Stanford, And so there was a little bit of a thinking to like square in my head, especially because there were definitely opportunities that vastly improved my career just from the connections I had made in the program, And I'm super grateful for that. And so what I've really loved is over time, more and more external facing engagement with the rest of the university and with other, ultimately scholars out there who just aren't part of the program, just feels better and better and better, just more ingrained into the university.
I think we've almost exhausted our time. It's unheard of to finish early, but okay.
All right, thank you so much for the panel. And yes, there are